In today's video, we're going to build a personal portfolio website with Webflow. If you missed the first part of this series, we designed our personal portfolio website in Adobe XD. I'll link that on the screen now so you can go check that out. Here's what our current design looks like. And by the end of today's video, we're going to have the desktop version of the website finished. So let's go ahead and continue on with our 3-part video series sponsored by Hostinger. Hostinger offers a variety of shared hosting plans with affordable prices and reliable speeds. If you've never looked into shared hosting before, shared hosting allows multiple websites to be hosted on a single server instead of you paying for the entire dedicated server. Simply go to hostinger.com/Kaler and select the hosting plan that you need for your website. It's also worth mentioning that with Hostinger, it's super easy to get started and to set things up, and they have 24/7 customer support in over 20 languages. So if you have any questions, you can always contact their customer support. And don't forget to use coupon code Kaler at checkout to get an added 7% off. That can be up to a total of 91% off. All right, so to get started in Webflow, we're going to go ahead and create a blank project. So let's go ahead and grab a blank project, and we'll give it a name and create the site. So here we have our blank Webflow project. So let's take a look at our design. We're going to start with the hero section here, and then we'll add the navigation right after that. So our hero section is going to be 100% of the viewport height. So let's go ahead and create a new div. I'm going to hit Command E and type out div block. You can also grab that with the plus icon over here and then drag out a div block. For this div, we'll give it a class of section, and we're going to use this kind of as a template. So we'll reuse this throughout the site. So I'm going to add 40 padding all around. So I'm going to hold Alt and Shift and just drag down to 40. That'll help make things responsive later. Then we'll hit Command E one more time, create another div block, and now we're going to have our wrapper. And again, this will be kind of a template that we're going to reuse, and we're going to set the max width of the site to quite large. On this one, we'll go with 1700 pixels. So max width 1700. And we're going to center that horizontally. So we'll click this here, and that sets both of these to auto on margin. So we'll just go ahead and hit Command E, type out heading, and we're going to make sure that's an H1. And I'm going to click inside of our selector, and I'm going to grab all H1 headings since we're going to be reusing these. We're going to style the H1 itself. So it's going to stylize all of the H1s on the site. And here's where we need to go to our project settings. So I'll click the hamburger menu in the top left and project settings. We need to go to fonts, and we need to add a Google font, and we'll grab Poppins. So I'm going to select that, and we'll hit add font. So now we have that. We can go back to designer, selecting our heading, and we'll grab the H1, and then we'll set this to Poppins, and this will be a regular weight. So 400 for normal. The size on this was 144 points in our project. So we'll set that to 144. And for the line height, we'll do 144 times 1.2. That gives us 172.7, so we'll go with 173. And the color is going to be set to black. Then if we go down to more type options, drop that down, we'll set this to the full caps, and we've stylized our H1s. Another thing we can do is go over here to the body, and with the body tag selected, we'll go and change the entire font for the site to Poppins as well, and the color to black. And then we're using 18-point font for our paragraphs. So we'll establish that here as well. So we'll change that from 14 to 18. And then we'll do 18 times 1.5 for the line height. That'll give us 27. So back to our H1, we're going to need 3 of these. So I'm going to hit Command C, Command V. So we have 3 of them. The next thing we need to do is add our paragraph right here. So to do that, we're going to hit Command E, and I'm going to grab a div block, and we're going to nest this heading, the middle one, inside of that div block. With that div selected, I'm going to hit Command E one more time and grab a paragraph. So the paragraph and the heading are inside of this div. So we need to give this div block a name. So I'm just going to call this 2-column grid and hit enter. And we'll go ahead and align this up. So we'll click here under display for a grid, and I'm going to delete the second row. So we have these two here, and I'm going to grab the heading and I'm going to drag that out to a 2 for the fraction. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio. And we'll change the pixels on the gap to 90 to give us some space in between. So we can hit done there. And now we have these side by side. So next, let's go ahead and paste in all of our text. And now we have that. We can grab the paragraph. And for this, I'm just going to give it a class of gray, and we'll change the text color on that to what we're using in our project, which was 6A, 6A, 6A. That'll lighten that up a bit. Then we can select the paragraph text, and we're going to align that vertically centered. And then I'll also align it on the left. And for the web designer text, centered and aligned on the right, because we want them to stay in the middle when our design is changing size. All right, so now that we have our basic content in here, let's go ahead and select the section div itself. And we're going to add a combo class of hero. So now we'll only be styling this class. So first we'll set the height and width to 100 viewport. So 100 VW for the width and 100 VH for the height. Then I'm also going to set a minimum height of 900 pixels. Next, we can add a class to each one of our headings, and I'm going to call this hero H1. I'm going to apply that to each one of these. And the reason we're doing that is because this hero section is going to be unique, and that we're going to grab the section div itself, and we're going to set the font to 1 viewport width. And by setting the parent of these headings to 1 viewport width, that will allow us to change these to an EM. So we'll set them to 7 EM. And you'll notice the size is going to be different. So what this is going to do is if we hit live preview, as the browser is going to be scaled, the design is going to shrink like so. Also, we need to adjust the line height. So I'm going to put 1.2, and then I'm going to hit dash. And that's going to make sure that scales as well. So if we go back, you'll notice the line height is now scaling with the text instead of that big space getting in between. And I also want these to be center aligned. The next thing we need to do is go ahead and grab that section again. And we're going to add display of flex to this. And we're going to change that to vertical, and we'll make sure both of those are centered. And another thing we need to do is set the position to relative, because we're going to have these images that we're going to add here in just a second as an absolute. And so it's going to be relative to this section instead of the body. So we'll go in here and we'll make sure we have the section selected, and I'm going to hit Command E, and we'll add another div. We'll call this 2-column image grid, and we'll set the height on this to 220. We'll need to add a max width to this to match the rest of our design. So 1700. I'm going to go down to position, and we'll set that to absolute. And we're going to select this icon here for auto, and then 0% on the left, right, and bottom. And I'm also going to add a little bit of padding to this. So we'll go 40 to match the padding for our sections. So that's just on the left and right. So I'm holding Alt to do that. So now we need to set this to grid, and we'll delete the bottom row again, and then we can hit done. And we'll do this with div blocks and set the background image instead of actually doing an image class. So Command E, div, and we'll call this hero image. Command C, Command V to create 2 of them, and they auto snap into both grid cells there. Then I'm going to add a combo class, and this one's going to be set to left. And for the left one, we want it to be aligned to the top. Then on the other one, we're going to give it a combo class of right, and we'll set that one to the bottom. So on the left, we're going to need to apply our background image now. So let's go to our images, and I'm going to upload our images. So I'm just going to drag these stock photos and drop them in, and they'll upload. Then we can close that. So on the left, we'll hit the plus, choose image. We'll grab that one, and I'm going to center this. It's going to be cover, no tile. So we'll click the X, and then you can see it's kind of clipping the face off, but that's fine because we're going to go back into our hero image. So I'm going to select right here and grab hero image. So I'm adjusting the hero image class itself and not the combo class now. And we'll set a height of 167 pixels just to make that a little bit bigger. And then we can hit back on that. And so now we're adjusting the combo class. So if we want, we can adjust this a little bit better So maybe 40% on the top or 46 looks good. And now we'll grab the one on the right, make sure we're adjusting the combo class, and we'll add the image for that one. Uploaded the wrong image, so I'm going to drag the other one in. All right, so I'll go ahead and grab the image. I'm going to center it, cover, make sure we don't tile that. And there we go. So now we have both of our images in, and they're positioned on the bottom. Next thing I want to do is grab that paragraph. I'm actually going to hit this drop down and rename this. It's going to call it Hero Paragraph, so Hero P. And I'm going to add some padding on the right of 100, just to give that some nice space on the right. I forgot to adjust the line height on this one. So we'll set that one to 1.5 and then put that dash in. And that way the line height will auto adjust like our headings. So let's go and see how that looks. Much better. All right, so next let's create the navigation. So the navigation we're using is pretty simple. So I'm going to select the body and hit Command E, grab a div block, and we'll drag that above the section. And with this one, we'll call it nav. With the nav selected, I'm going to hit Command E, and we'll grab a heading for the logo. For this one, we can set it to an H4, so we'll give it the name of logo. So for the logo, we'll set it to 24 pixels, and we'll leave the height at 24 as well. Set the weight to normal, and I'll just type in my name. And we also need to create a div. So Command E, div, and this is going to be for our nav links. So I'll call that nav link container, and Command E once more. And now we'll grab a text link, and we'll style this. Give this a class of nav link. Add some padding on the side. So we'll go on the left side, we'll go 60. That'll help us out when we're going to put it over here on the right in a minute. And we'll set this to a black color. We'll remove the decoration. And then I want it to be all lowercase. So I'm going to click the two lowercase a's. And I'm going to hit Command C, Command V to create two of them. So we have Let's Talk and My Work. So now that we have those in there, let's grab a hold of the navigation. And for the navigation, we'll set it to flex. I'm going to set it to horizontal. I'm going to align that to the center. And we'll set the justify to space in between. We have 40 padding on the left and the right. So holding Alt, I'll click and drag that out. That will match the rest of our design. Let's also add a little bit of height to this. So we'll get down to height and 100 pixels, just to make that a little larger. We also need to go to position, and we'll set that to absolute. And we'll select this one here for 0 on the top and left and right and auto on the bottom. And then for the Z index, we want to set that to 1000 so that it's on top of everything else. All right, so now that we have this, we pretty much have it looking the way we want. One thing we need to do before we move on to the next section is we need to go up here and add another breakpoint, and we're going to add a large breakpoint of 1920. And we're going to go ahead and create that. So with this breakpoint now selected, we need to click on our headings, and we need to set them to the actual height and size we want them to be at once they reach this breakpoint. So we're going to turn them back to normal. So 144 for the pixel, and we'll go with 144 with the height as well. So 144 pixels on both of those. And I want to grab the body, and we'll set that to 18 pixels with 18 times 1.5. And we'll set that to pixel. So that's 27 pixels. And so once it reaches this breakpoint, now it's going to convert these from their EM values to the pixel value, so they'll stop scaling. So setting the max width on the section will stop it from getting any bigger, the container, but the text will still grow inside of the container. So we want to stop that, and that's what we're doing here. And then the last thing we need to do is grab the 2-column image grid and set the spacing on that to auto on each side, and that'll keep that centered when we start reaching those breakpoints as well. And then one final adjustment here on the center text, we also need to make sure that is aligned right. So I'm going to give that a combo class, and we'll align that to the right. One thing to note here is now that we have this larger breakpoint, you want to make sure that you're on the starred version of this, the base breakpoint. That way all of your styles cascade up and down now. Because if you style this one, only the changes will be made to this breakpoint. So we want to make sure we go back here every time. Another thing I want to do is on this section here in the middle, I'm going to go to the grid, and the space in between here, I'm going to set that to 6 EM. And that way that scales with the design as well. That looks much better. And then of course we want to go into the larger breakpoint now, and we want to then change that from EM to 90 pixels. So that way that stops scaling as well. And with that, I think we're done with our hero section, and now we can move on to the next. All right, so moving on to our next section. This one's pretty easy. It's just a paragraph. So we'll go over here and to our navigator, grab the body, Command E, create a div. That'll make sure it's all the way down here at the bottom, and we can collapse the rest of these for now. And we'll call this section, Command E, grab another div block, and we'll call this one wrapper. So we're just adding those pre-existing classes on. For the section, I'm going to add a combo, and I'm just going to add center to this. And we're going to go with display flex, vertical, and aligned, and justified centered. Same thing with the wrapper. Add another combo class called center, display of flex, and we'll do vertical again, and align and justified centered. Then we'll add a heading to this. This one's going to be an H2. With that selected, we'll grab all the H2s for the entire document and stylize those now. This will be a normal weight, 88 pixels in size, and 106 for the line height. And we also need to add the all capital AA there. And then we can paste in our text. So one thing I want to do here with this section is I'm going to add another combo class, and it's up to you, whatever you want to name it. I'm going to add 100 viewport height to this, so it scales with the viewport. And let's also set a minimum height of 900 pixels as well, similar to our hero section. Then for our paragraph, I'm going to center align that, and we'll set it to a width of 80%. And we have your ideas and digital experiences in our design and bold. So I'll double click to grab those, and we'll click the paintbrush for wrap with span, and I'll do that with both of them. And we'll call this bold, and I'm going to add that to both of them. And we'll change the font weight to, let's go with semi-bold. That looks pretty good. And we'll move on to the next section. Command E, create another div, call this one section, and Command E once more. Just repeating and creating a wrapper. Inside of that wrapper, I'm going to create another div, and we'll just call this one something like work section or work container. We'll go grid. Then I'm going to click the plus to add 4 columns. And the first column, I'm going to set that to 144 pixels. And then I'm going to add another row. So we have 3 of them. And then for the space in between the rows, I want to make sure that's unlocked, so we can just set the row gap to, let's go with something like 300 pixels, just to get a good amount of space in between each of our different projects. And then we can hit done on that for now. So the first thing we need to do here is create a div. And this is going to be for our text. So we'll call this text container. And I'm going to set the position on this to manual. I'm going to drag it down to cover the entire column, so it spans all 3 rows. And then inside of that, we'll put a heading, and this is going to be an H1. And on this heading, we got to go down to 2D and 3D transforms. And under rotate on the Z-axis, we'll do -90. With the text container selected, I'm going to add a padding of 300 on the top. And that will push that text down a little bit. And when we put work in, you'll see it fits really nicely inside of our grid. Also with that selected, so text container, we're going to set the position on this to sticky, and we want that to stick 60 points or 60 pixels from the top of the browser. So as we scroll down, 60 points will be in between the text and the top of the browser, and that will stick to the end of the section. The next thing we can do is add another div. And this is going to be for the project itself. So again, we'll go to manual on the position, and then I'm also going to drag this to span the entirety of the row, so it fills all 3 of the leftover columns. And I'm going to call this project container. Now this is going to house the two text fields and the image. So we're actually going to set this to grid as well. So we'll create a grid and we're going to remove both the column gap and the row gap. So we'll set both those to 0. And the top row, I'm going to set to a fixed height of 88 pixels. And then we can hit done on that. So now we have a 2x2 grid. I'm going to hit Command E, and I'm going to create a text link. And I'm going to give this class of work heading. Make sure it's set to black, and we'll remove the decoration. I'm going to set it to all caps and 52 for the size and the line height. Let's put project name in for now. Then for the position on this, we want to position this to the bottom and on the left. Command E, and now we'll grab a heading. This one's going to be an H3. And here, if we want, we can style the H3 for the entire document, which we will. So we'll set it to 52 as well, with a line height of 52. And we'll go with a normal weight and all caps. For this one, we'll add a class now and call this one award heading. And I'm going to align this to the right. And for the position inside here, we'll set it to the bottom, and now on the right, we'll justify it. And for now, I'm just going to type in site of the day. And finally, inside this grid, we need an image. So Command E, image. Now, if you're going to have the link on the image itself instead of the project name, you can do a link block, but I'm actually going to do an image since we have that on the heading. And before we forget, let's also go here and add an underline to this, just so people know that they can click on that. And here we'll go to manual and we'll drag this out to fill both of those columns. And I'm going to set the width on this to 100%. And you'll see that auto adjusts the height on the image. And then we'll click the settings cog, choose image, and I'm going to upload my images. Now's a good time to mention that the size of your image does matter. So you want to make sure that you go in Photoshop and scale these to a good size. Mine are quite large, so I would never actually publish these. So for your live website, you want to make sure that you have all of your images optimized at a nice small size. We have a 10 pixel margin on the side of the day text, so we also need to add that to the link, just so we have some space in between that and the image. So now all we have to do is recreate this 3 times for the rest of the grid cells. So if we select the work container, hit Command E, grab a div block, and we'll name it project container. And we need to set it to manual, and we will drag that out. And then we can just copy and paste, Command C, Command V, our items from above. And then I always have problems with the image, so I'll hit Command E and just create a new image and then just manually position it. And we'll give it the same class, which the other one's just called image. And then we'll choose our image. And then we do that one more time, Command E, div block. And just like that, we have all 3 of our projects in here, and we can change the text. And one thing I forgot to do in this section is grabbing the text container. We need to align that to the top. And then when we hit the live preview, we scroll down, we get that nice stick there for the text. And we can take a look at the projects. And each of these are links to wherever you're housing your project. And that will do it for our work section. So let's go ahead and grab the body once more. I'm going to collapse all of these, Command E, and we'll go ahead and do that same process of creating a section, then another div inside of that with a wrapper. This section needs to be full height. So first I'm going to grab center, and then I'm going to set it to the full height combo class we already have. So it's 100% of our viewport. And then for this, we're also going to set the wrapper itself to 100% height, just so it scales to the height of the section above it. And that's going to apply that to every case of that class, which is fine. And then we're going to create another div inside of the wrapper. And this one's going to be called stat grid. And if we look at our design, we're going to create this little section with a heading in the top and a statistic down here at the bottom. For this one, we're going to set it to a grid, and we'll do 3 columns and 2 rows. So the bottom row, we're going to set that to the max content. The top row will be auto. And then up here at the top, we're going to set these fractions to 0.25 for the first one and 0.5 for the middle one. And then we can hit done. And we'll also set our stat grid to 100% height to fill out this section. Then with our stat grid selected, I'm gonna hit Command E and grab a heading, and that will automatically put that in the first grid cell. It's gonna be in H3, and I'll paste in some text. Then I'm gonna hit Command E, and we're gonna grab another heading. This one's gonna be in H1, but we're gonna give it a class of oversized. And we'll set that to 288 with a line height of 288. So for mine, I'm going to put in 14. And then we need to set the position on this one to manual. And I want it to start at 1.1 and end at 2.2. So it's going to put it in the bottom left-hand corner. Then we'll also align these. So grabbing the heading in the top, we're going to go on the top and justify to the left. And I'm going to align this to the center and justify to the left. Next, we need to create a div. Command E, div block. I'm going to set this to manual, and this one we can drag down into second row, second column. And we actually don't have to apply any styling to this. It's just a container. So I'm going to create a heading, and this is going to be, I think, our only H5. I'll paste in our text there, projects completed. Since it's our only H5, I'm not going to style the H5 tag itself. We'll just give it a small heading class, set it to a semi-bold, all capital, and then we'll go 18 for the line height and size. And then we'll hit Command E and add a paragraph here, paste in some text. And then on this paragraph, we'll give it a class name. I just called mine stat P, and I'm just going to give it the gray color we're using, which is 6A, 6A, 6A. Then let's grab the div block, which is the container of both of these. And we need to make sure that is set to center. So that's vertically going to be in line with our 14 number now. And I'm also going to go edit this grid. And my fraction somehow got messed up. It should be 0.5 instead of 0.25. One other thing we need to do is grab our heading. We'll set that one to manual. And I'm going to make this 2 columns wide. So with the eyeball, you can see we have an issue with the hero. We'll fix that in just a sec. We scale down though, that sticks. And so all we're missing is our call to action. So let's go ahead and fix this issue, which I believe is with the wrapper. Since we set that to 100% on the height, I'm also going to add the center class to this, and that will fix that and just push it down. So once again, we'll click the body and Command E, creating 2 divs. One's called section, and another one is going to be called wrapper, and the wrapper is going to be a child of the section. With our section selected, I'm going to add a combo class of footer so we can uniquely stylize this. We'll set the background to black first, and then on the text size, 1 viewport width, and then we can create a new div. And I'm going to make sure that went inside the wrapper. It didn't, so I'm going to nest that. And we're going to call this footer grid. And we'll set it to grid. And we're basically going to recreate the grid we just used in the last section. So we're going to have 3 columns and 2 rows. The first one, 0.25 on the fraction, and the middle column is going to be set to 0.5. Auto on the first row, and then max content on the last row. And then for now, we can hit done, and then we can hit Command E. We'll add a heading, h3, give that a class, and I'm just going to call it white because we're going to add a white color to the text. And then on our h3, got an idea. And then let's position this manually and drag it out to be 2 columns wide. Then we need to set it to a EM value for size. And I'm going to go with 2.5 EM. And then for the line height, 1.2 with that dash for it to scale as well. Then we'll create a text link and we'll give that a class called footer link. Then it's going to be 16 EM. We'll set it to white, 1.2 with a dash for the line height. And then we're going to leave the underline decoration. And then we can set it to manual and drag this to the bottom left-hand corner. And then scale this to be full width of all 3 columns. And then we'll input our text. And then I will set it to all capital. And then lastly, let's go to our grid. And for the row gap, I'm going to set it to 8 EM to scale with the text. And then we need to undo that with our larger viewport. So I'll go ahead and select that. We'll set the first text to 52 pixels and 52 pixels for the line height. And for the larger text, we'll set it to 288 pixels for the line height. Also, we can edit our grid and we'll set the row gap 100 pixels or so. And then we need to go back to our normal desktop view. I don't know if I talked about this much in part 1 while we were designing, but having a good call to action and a professional business email does a lot, especially on a portfolio site like this. And with Hostinger, it's super easy to set up a nice professional business email. With my premium shared account that they provided me with, I have up to 100 business emails. So here in the H panel, I'll just go to the email tab, and then I'm going to select the @ and then my domain there to set up that domain's email. So you can type in whatever you want your email to be. For me, I'm going with a general business one and just going with contact us. Set your password, and you can put a password recovery email address in. I suggest doing that, and then hit create new account. Then once we've created that, I'm going to hop over to Webflow, and then I'm just going to paste in that email address in this field. And I've set up a professional business email call to action just like that. And while we're here in the H panel, I want to quickly go over how you can set up your SSL certificate for a little bit better security and better SEO. So if you have this notification here, you can click setup, or you can just go to the SSL tab. And this is a pending setup, so we want to go ahead and set that up. And you can select the website it's for. I'm going to use the domain for the website that we're building and just hit install SSL. And you'll see we have our SSL now set up. Super simple and easy, and it never expires. So once it finishes installing, I'll hop over to the domain and we'll take a look at what the difference is. And you can see now it is set to active, so it's finished installing. And you can tell that it's installed on your website by going up to the top, and here I'm on Safari. So there's a little lock icon here next to the domain, and I can click show certificate if I would like. And that's how you can easily set up your SSL with Hostinger. Now let's go ahead and start setting up our links. So we only have 2, and then we have the call to action on the bottom, so technically 3. So the first one here, my work, we're going to grab the settings cog there. And for this, we want to change it to this little arrow pointing to the page, and we need to choose a section. So if we go to this section with our work, and I'm going to grab the work container and give it an ID of work section. And let's also set up one for the footer. I'll grab the section itself this time and call it footer. Then we can go back to my work, and now we can choose the work section. And for Let's Talk, we want to choose the footer section. So when we click on one of those, it's going to scroll down automatically to that section. So that's looking good. Another good thing to do would be to go to each one of your images and make sure you have some alt text. So you can apply some alt text here and add a custom description if you'd like. And so now we're at a good point for the desktop version of the website. So let's go ahead and head over to Hostinger and actually sign up and create our account. So I'll have a Hostinger link at the top of the description, hostinger.com/Kaler, and that'll take you to this page. The current deal is $2.99. a month on their premium shared hosting plan. If you scroll down, you can see all the details about that plan. And once you've chose the plan that you want, you can hit select. And to create an account, all you got to do is go down to step 2, create your account, and just insert your email here, or you can use Google, Facebook, or GitHub. And also don't forget that you can use the coupon code KALER for an extra 7% off your order. That adds on to the annual discounts, so you can get up to 91% off. And so now that we have our account created, we'll click login. And that will take you to the H panel where you'll start hosting the website, which we're going to do in the next video after we make our website responsive. So that's going to do it for part 2. Special thanks to Hostinger for sponsoring this series and making it all possible. Check out these videos for more web design related content. And as always, have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.